Hi, welcome back to the Personality Hacker Podcast. My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
And we have a very interesting and special podcast for you today. We are coming live recorded from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And we have an amazing studio audience joining us tonight. So one of the things that we've been doing lately is we've been doing these things called 10-minute type advices. They're different than our main podcast. It's about 10 minutes. I don't think we've ever been at actual 10 minutes.
There's a reason why there's an asterisk next to 10 minutes. And there's a reason why the intro says in about 10 minutes. I don't think I've ever said anything in 10 minutes. So, yeah.
I mean, to be fair, they're like at least under 15 usually. So between 10 and 50. But we say
do
it's
our best.
About 10 minutes.
Right.
Where people usually will audio record a question into us and we can answer it.
Yep.
And then if you've ever listened to our podcast for any length of time, you probably hear me at the end say something like, what do you think? What do you think about this topic? Come share a voice. We've been the two of us, but you're the third person in this conversation, but you don't have a microphone, but we want to hear from you. Come over to personalhacker.com and I wrap it up that way. Well, tonight we actually do have an actual third microphone physically in our presence, and we have an amazing studio audience you just heard from a moment ago. So we thought what we could do is curate some questions and some conversation from all of the folks that are here. And I thought that would be a great way to start.
Yep.
So does anybody have anything to kick us off with? Can just kind of jump up? Yeah, right here. Come on up. Come on up and join. Give me a hand, everybody. All right, sir. So let's start off with the basics. Your name?
My name's Sean.
Your name is Sean. And where are you from, Sean?
I am from Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas. You came all the way to Gettysburg to join us for our podcast.
I did.
Fantastic. What is your best fit type?
ISTP.
ISTP.
Yep.
Do you have a question, something you want to talk about tonight? Kick us off.
Yeah, my question kind of is surrounded around communication. What I find is sometimes me and my wife, when we're talking with each other, I'll be saying one thing and she will hear something completely different. So if I say like, oh, this thing is on the counter, I don't want it there. It's getting in the way. That's really just what I mean. It's just in the way. But what she hears is like an attack on her values and her thoughtfulness, that she didn't put it there intentionally. And so then we end up getting into an argument. And so, yeah, I'm wondering if there are maybe any like tips or cues that maybe you can pick up on that will help you identify those miscommunications, or maybe get clarity before they happen.
So let me just ask you a couple of clarifying things. So
Sure.
From your perspective as an ISTP, you're leading with a cognitive function. The driver or dominant cognitive function you would use would be introverted thinking. We've nicknamed it accuracy. So it's all about logical consistency, speaking your truth, calling things as you see them.
Absolutely.
So this is, by you doing this with your wife, saying this is like your superpower. You're supposed to say things in a truthful way and be like, this is how this is affecting me, the situation or whatever. And what I'm guessing, would you express that your wife's maybe experience of that is you're like calling her stupid, like she wasn't thoughtful or thinking about, when you call that out on the counter, something like that. What do you think her emotional experience is? Do you think she thinks you're saying that she's dumb, she's not being thoughtful, she's not thinking through all the elements of this? Like, how could you articulate what you think's going on for her?
Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty well. It's mainly that I'm accusing her of not thinking about where that was or planning for that, that she wasn't intentional about it.
Okay.
Do you know your wife's best fit type preferences?
Yeah, she's an INFJ.
Okay.
That's a cool relationship. INFJ, ISTP. You guys
Yes.
probably have like complementary energies. You probably appreciate each other a lot.
We do, yeah. We vibe very well.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So I have some things to say specifically about the two types, and then I have some general concepts that I can weave in here, potentially. Let's see where this goes, all right?
All right.
So when you lead with a function, and by the way, it sounds like in an ISTP, INFJ relationship, you each have each other's dominant or driver function as each other's 10-year-old or tertiary function. And that means that the way that I've started to see functions, and this has been kind of a big aha for me, is that the descending order of functions diagnoses our relationship to them in terms of certainty. I think we've talked about this in recent podcasts. So that first function is a function that's very certain. In fact, in some ways it's overconfident, right? And Dr. John Beebe's model, he calls it a hero because it's like the right tool for all the jobs. And sometimes, particularly people who lead with functions like introverted thinking or accuracy, we learn that not everybody likes our favorite function. And so we learn to be quiet, but that doesn't mean we don't still think it's the right tool for the job, right? And we have a sense of overcertainty with that function with ourselves, even if not everybody else appreciates this beautiful gift that we have to offer. So when you do communicate this to her, on some level, what you're saying is that I trust that you're going to be able to receive this with the intention that I have, right? I'm honoring you with my truth, right? I don't give my truth to everybody because not everybody receives it well. But you're my intimate, you're my partner. I'm going to give you my radical honesty, and I trust that you're going to be able to understand that this is not an attempt to create discord. This is actually an attempt to create harmony. I'm not a fan of this. If you're not a fan of something that you live with every day, there's like a little bit of heat that gets generated every time you see that thing, right? And I just don't want that heat, right? And so let's do something about this. Now, by the time you get to that third function, the 10-year-old or tertiary function, you're now in a place of uncertainty. And the way that we tend to deal with the uncertainty of that function is that we're seeking approval from the outside world, right? By the time we get to the fourth function, we're like deeply uncertain. And even when somebody says, you did a good job, we go, yeah, sure I did. But that third function, that's what Dr. John Beebe calls an internal child, right? And what do children do? They seek adult approval in order to feel a sense of certainty, right? Did I do good? Did I do a good job? So if there's I'm noticing something that isn't placed in the place that I would like you to place it, right? This is not what I would have done. It's entirely possible that your wife is receiving this in a place of uncertainty, right? You're calling out something that's true for you. And oftentimes it's calibrative, right? Introverted thinking or accuracy is a very calibrative function. It's always looking to like optimize things and improve upon them. And her choice in your mind wasn't optimized, right? There's a better place to do this. Well, that hits her right in that eternal child part, that 10-year-old or tertiary function, that you're not approving of her choices. And so now she's not getting the head pat that function is looking for. And then that means that she's going to get triggered because now she's uncertain without any outer world approval to buoy up that sense of certainty. And you probably have experienced that in the reverse too.
Yes, that's what I was going to say is the same thing happens in reverse. She'll say something to me and it'll make me feel, I get immediately defensive.
Right.
Even though it's not what she was actually trying to communicate after we sorted it out.
Yeah.
So, it's reciprocal.
Have you considered it from this perspective? Of course I have, right? Yeah, exactly. Yes. So that's already understanding that dynamic takes care of a lot of things because when our partner has certain criteria they're looking for, all of our functions, what's nice about you and your wife is that you're actually sharing all the same functions just in different order. And so you can get into you can sympathize with what her functions are looking for, right? Their desires. When we're partnered with somebody who has very different functions from us, that can be a little challenging because it takes a while to figure out what's the heart of this thing. Like, what is this thing looking for? But what's nice is that you know that she's going to be shifting perspectives. You know that she's going to be trying to create, connection and increased morale and getting people's needs met with her extroverted feeling or harmony. You know that she's going to be seeking a sense of competence, optimization, doing things as logically as possible with her introverted thinking or accuracy. And you know that she's going to have a little part of her that wants to feel a sense of max aliveness and effortless flow with her extroverted sensing or sensation. You can sympathize with all of that. But the thing that throws it out of whack is that what makes her feel unsettled and uncertain is very different than yours. So just a little bit of bookending can sometimes help with this, which is... this is what I do. I'm a fellow introverted thinking or accuracy user, so I've learned this technique. I almost prep the person for bad news. All right. I'm about to criticize you. Are you in a good space to hear it? Right? Or I'm about to say a thing that I have a feeling will make you feel like I'm criticizing you. I'm really not, but I'm going to say it because I kind of need to say it. But how are you feeling right now? Right? And if you say it with a sense of, I need to communicate this in order for us to maintain harmony, right? This is something that we need to do in order to stay connected. And it's going to come across like criticism, and I know that, and I don't know what else to do about it. But I still need to communicate it. So is this a moment that we can do that? And it's like you're checking in to make sure that she's resourced. And you're giving her a little bit of lead time to like get the hit, right? And you can say, and I can communicate it however it makes sense to you, but that's kind of what needs to happen. And I've noticed that most people, if you give them a little bit of preparation, they go, okay, yeah, go ahead. Right. Or they'll do this. Of course I'll listen to you. Right. Of course. Why would I get offended? Right. Now they have to stay consistent with the thing that they just said. Right.
It's a trap.
Yeah, it's a trap. Right. Exactly. So you've got them there. And then now they're going to be consistent with the thing that they just told you. And so you can deliver the bad news. Right. And then the person can reconcile it inside of themselves, and then it's okay. So, that's number one. As a person who uses introverted, as a fellow person who uses introverted thinking or accuracy, I've learned bookends are very helpful. It's just prep them, right? This might sting a little bit. And I don't even know why it might sting. I don't get it, right? I don't know why it hurts their feelings. I just know it does. And so that's what I tend to do. The second thing is I also choose the right moment. Is this person resourced? Well, is your partner, your wife resourced? Is she in a good place? Is she have you been keeping connection and morale up? Because she's looking to connect first and then pass data, right? And when you're using introverted thinking as one of the first two functions, you don't really need that connection. You just want the data. And when data creates connection, huzzah, right? That's awesome. But when people have that in reverse order, they usually need connection first, and then they know we're okay, and then you can deliver the information. So it's bookending, communicating what's about to happen, and it's also making sure you're connecting first, and then communicating the information directly.
Instead of just hitting them over the head with it.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's like a big dump of TIs coming, right? Are you cool?
So
yeah.
I have a quick question. How long had you been thinking about like this one specific example? I know you're asking a meta question, but there's this thing on the counter. You're kind of like, it doesn't make sense to have it there. I need to speak my truth. How long had that been in your head?
For a while, because I knew that it would be something that might be a point of contention, or it might cause hostility.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I haven't really had the tools, or maybe that's kind of why I was asking, because I don't.
Yeah.
Usually, what I end up doing is just not saying anything, and that's like equally as bad, because we're not, then we're just not communicating.
Yeah. What was the catalyst for mentioning it this time around?
It was actually in one of your courses for...
It's our fault.
You told us to be radically honest, and then
Yes.
and then I got in Dutch with a wife.
Thanks to both of you.
So now help me get out of this, guys.
Fair enough.
Yes. That's what I said. Joel and
man.
Antonia told me to do it. I'm sorry.
So are you heading someplace?
I was just curious what the catalyst was after a while because I thought it had been a while. I was wondering what caused you to want to do it then.
Well, actually, that's a really good question, because I've also noticed that the closer that I deliver a piece of information that is a truth for me, especially if it creates a little like frustration or heat, the closer I say it to the time that I originally recognize that this is a thing for me, the less wormy I get about it. Like if I wait a long time, heat has built, frustration has built, like there's like a hesitance, and
it's a bigger deal.
and the INFJ breeds that. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. So just try to bring it up sooner rather than later is what you're saying.
Yeah. Bring it
So
forward
there's
in
an undertone of annoyance or anger that you may not realize.
bring it earlier in the timeline. We don't know how things are making us feel, so we don't know what emotions are being smuggled into our conversation oftentimes. We're not aware of it. So bring it closer to the time period so heat doesn't build unconsciously, in the shadow. And do a little bookending, right? Connect first, and then do a little bookending and go, okay, so here's the thing. I'm about to say something that I know is going to upset you, and I don't know how else to say it. So here I go, right?
Right.
And I have try it out and let us know how it works, right?
Yeah.
Because this might be
I think it'll go better than the first time.
might be terrible advice. I don't know. Go field test it, right? And eventually you're just like, personality hacker destroyed my marriage. But I have a feeling it will work. And especially I think if she knows that it is troubling to you, her extroverted feeling is that's also, you connect. She knows it's troubling to you. It's not just criticism. It's like a thing. and her desire to stay in connection with you and be in harmony with you, I think that's going to win out.
And I think that makes sense. Yeah. If I'm giving my intention, that my intention isn't to cause disconnection or malice or anything like that. I think that's great.
Awesome.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, give him a hand, everybody. All right. So we have an empty microphone here, begging for someone to come sit. Who's next? Who wants to come up, share something, ask something? Come on down. We should have like the Price is Right music. Is that what we have? This is an old reference. Wow.
I think the Price is Right is still a thing.
Is it? Actually, it is. I don't watch terrestrial television anymore.
Oh, how hoity-toity
well,
are you?
Cord cutting. I mean,
right.
I'm not trying to be arrogant. Hi. Hello. So come up and join the mic a little closer. What's your name?
Hello, my name is Lauren.
And where are you from, Lauren?
Northern Virginia, Arlington.
Okay. So you didn't have to come as far as Austin, Texas, but Northern Virginia.
2 hours.
It's great. Best fit type.
Oh, I'm definitely a TJ. Started out as an INTJ, kind of going through a type journey right now.
Okay. So you're in a type journey, possibly open to other things, but identified INTJ for a while.
Yes.
Okay. And what do you want to talk about tonight?
Well, I wanted to ask you two. You've been doing a lot of small group coaching over the last year or two. You've mentioned it in several podcasts that have dropped recently. And I wanted to ask whether there are emerging themes or things that have surprised you or that you have realized from all of this volume of coaching that you've done lately.
That's a really good question.
Surprises about people and type? Like maybe be a little, like carve this down to a little more specific of a question, maybe. Like frame it a little tighter.
Okay, things that people are hungry for, things that people are struggling with, looking for instruction on. You all have been coaches for a long time, so you have a lot of experience under your belt. But I'm really curious what you've seen as the emerging themes or trends in the last year or two.
Right. You thought you were doing me a favor by making it more specific, but now she's actually asked for me to remember what people are asking about. So now you're pulling on my memory, and I'm like, oh, what are people asking about? So thank you, by the way, Lauren, for asking. I appreciate that because it's like what you're curious about. What's come up for us?
I've noticed from my perspective, first of all, the low-hanging fruit, a lot of people, this is surprising, a lot of people have expressed, I feel like I'm responsible to change the world and solve all the problems of the universe. Like there's so many big issues and problems. And I wish I just had permission to be a little more local in my life. Just zoom in on the people around me, maybe my community. I feel this like responsibility toward this epic thing. Can you guys tell me if it's okay just to be a little bit more small, like focused a little more small, a little bit more tighter focus? That's the big theme I've seen emerge from a lot of people we've coached lately, especially since lockdown and the pandemic and all of that stuff. That seems to be an emerging theme that I've noticed off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. That is one. And I think it's generational. Like we propagandized pretty hard certain generations that they were going to be the people who saved us from ourselves. And so I think that there's almost feels like a responsibility that they're supposed to be the ones who solve all the world's problems. And then there's also simultaneously an assumption that if they're the ones who are going to solve the problems, then these older generations must have been the ones that originally destroyed everything. And it's like, well, no, we're both real smushed up against each other on the timeline of a long stretch of humanity that did plenty of, laying groundwork for both problems and solutions. So I think you might be right on that one. Do you have something to say on that piece, like an aha, or is it okay if I toggle over to the thing that Lauren first said, which are what are the insights you've come up with?
Absolutely. No, I was just sharing something that I've noticed that people are talking a lot about.
And to speak to that, by the way, I think people absolutely should give themselves permission to keep their ambitions of saving the world to a manageable chunk. Because if everybody is doing something for community, for their families, like if they're just, they're staying at a smaller level, playing at a smaller level, But doing that really well, and you stitch all that together, I think then that makes a big impact. So that would be my opinion on that. But I want to talk about the themes that have come up. And I know that this routes back to questions people have asked. I just don't remember. I realized what I'm like. I'm kind of like a, I heard this thing about servers that they remember what every single person asked for, or like every single person ordered until the bill is paid, and then they just wipe it. And you go, what did that person order? Like, I don't know, right? I'm completed that. And unfortunately, that ends up happening with me with like a disturbing amount of things. Like once the thing is done, my brain just like wipes it. So that's one of the reasons why I'm so terrible at coming up with actual examples. Like, give me an example of that. I'm like, examples, that's my Achilles heel. But I can go abstract. So the two major things that have come up, and you'll probably have heard me mention it in the podcast, and we're running a program on this because it was a really big aha for me, is this idea that the first four functions are in a descending order of certainty. And when I realized that, and I think we even did an entire podcast episode on personality types and uncertainty, that feeling of uncertainty is so corrosive for people. Like, we hate feeling uncertain. Certainty is a security blanket for us. And there's a part of us, and I would call it that fourth function, the inferior. We call it the 3-year-old. It's also called the anima or animus, many names. But that part of us is a place that it doesn't matter what work we do there. It doesn't matter how good we get at it. It doesn't matter the skill development. It doesn't matter the amount of integration work. The babadook of it is that it is always going to carry with it a sense of uncertainty. Like, are we doing this right? Or like, am I doing it like everybody else? And unlike the third function, which is a place of uncertainty, but we can calm ourselves down if we get approval from others that go, no, you did that well. And so that's why we do the dog and pony show in that third tertiary function. We're like, we're doing it right? And so we like present it to other people, like little children showing their toys, right? And they're like, yeah, that's really good. And it's like, yeah, right? So that's the place of that third function. But that fourth function is just always going to be uncertain. So that's one of the reasons, by the way, why people say it's the beginning of the shadow, because we have a tendency to just not want to look at it because it creates that unsettling feeling of uncertainty. And that means that it's a function that is incredibly important for us to build a relationship with, and that we are always going to feel uncomfortable in that building of the relationship. So how do you reconcile that, right? How does one reconcile that this imperative, important part of who they are is always going to carry with it the unsettling feeling of uncertainty? And the two things that came up for me was, one, we have to make peace with uncertainty. We just have to, right? Because it's not going anywhere. The only time it goes someplace is when we turn our heads away from it. It doesn't actually leave. It's just we're not paying attention to the feeling. But it's like that. But there's a bunch of content there that we need to look at. So we have to look uncertainty in the face, and we have to make peace with it. And that fourth function gives us an opportunity to have a part of ourselves that we are identified with, that we understand is important for us, that we intrinsically, instinctively recognize as a fire inside of us. Linda Behrens calls it our aspiration. Robert Johnson calls it the inspirer of life. And so we know we have to have it, but every time we look at it, am I doing it right? What am I missing? So we have to make peace with uncertainty in order to have an experience of whole self. And that led me to the second realization, which is whether by design or accident, that is really good for us because it gives us access to a sense of humility. If we have a part of us that we always ask if I'm doing this right, we can never get too big for our britches, right? It's like an enforced humility packet inside of us. And humility is imperative for it allows us to become the kind of person other people want to hang out with, right? If we're not humble, if we don't have a sense of like owning our imperfections and owning that there's some stuff we're just never going to be good at, and making peace with that and resting into it, then we're the kind of people nobody wants to hang out with, right? Because we're arrogant. And so there's a part of us that like making peace with uncertainty and that deeply unsettling part is actually humanizing. And that relationship is, I mean, again, whether by design or accident, it's a really important piece to Robert Jensen says in the book, that our anima or animus, that fourth function, we need to create a relationship with that's almost like two hands pressing together. And that means getting as close as humanly possible to a part of ourselves that makes us feel deeply uncomfortable. And if we can do that and hang there, and we can make that happen for ourselves, then we create a bridge to all sorts of content that is hard for us to look at, but introduces us to the whole package. So, so that's been a big aha for me, is making peace with uncertainty and allowing ourselves the experience of humility with that is how we get to know who we truly are. And it's how other people get to know who we are as well. So that's been a big one for me.
Yeah. I would go into mine, but we spent all the time on yours. I'm just kidding. I'm just thinking. I think so. Those are some of them, and I think the other kind of the meta answer to your thing that I've noticed is a lot of people are struggling a lot right now with a lot of things, and I know that everybody wants to be online, and I'm glad that we have this venue here for some people to come out and connect with each other, because I feel like we're the most connected we've ever been as humans, and I watch people struggling and reporting that they want more connection, but they either have circumstances that are like logistically challenging for it, or they don't know how to go create it. Like they don't know exactly what to do to go make the friends, connect to the tribe, figure out who they can be around. And I think in tandem with that, then the other emerging theme a lot is people are, and again, we're not going to address all this. I'm just giving you kind of a list of some of the things that come up in coaching. People are really looking to go do something, like kind of on that like little leader idea, like that smaller framework. They're like, I want to do something in the world, but I feel overwhelmed. I think it's a feeling of overwhelm that a lot of people are having. I want to have friends. I want to have community. I want to do something big. I just feel so much chaos in all the things that I see. And so I think a lot of our work is really helping people strip away a lot of the excess and get down to a sense of self. And I think that's why we come back to personality type. It really helps us get to a center point of, we're navigating, all of us are navigating a very postmodern, fragmented world. Like everybody here, we all have to live in this reality. It's got digitization and a weird, linear stuff going on, like all this everywhere. We've got to figure out how to do this as humans. And I think people are struggling a lot with it. And I think with our coaching, we've helped people understand, I've got the tools that I take with me in my cognition, how I learn information, how I make decisions. And there's ways that I can move through the world and access these parts of myself and bring it out into my gifts. And helping people identify that is a lot of what we spend time doing in those sessions, and really honing in on those things in a nuanced and detailed way. And it takes time. It takes effort. You've got to kind of buy in that this is something that can work for you and all those things, which our students and clients often do. But I would say those are some themes that I've also seen emerge, just as like a little checklist. Maybe we'll talk about it on a future podcast or something, like how to address all those things specifically.
I have one more thing to piggyback off of that, but I know it's going to be like another 10 minutes.
Oh.
So should we do a part 2?
We can do a part 2.
Okay.
I do want to hear from some more energies though, since we have a wonderful studio audience here.
That's true.
Maybe we can roll into it a little bit later. Can you maybe tag it for later?
I'll tag it.
We'll see what happens.
All
How's
right.
that sound?
All right.
Thank you, by the
Lauren.
way.
Thank you both.
Yeah,
Give her a hand. I appreciate it. We will be right back. If you're focused on personal growth, I think you'll resonate with our core content over at personalityhacker.com. We want to see you understand how your mind is wired so you can generate motivation, improve social skills, find career opportunities, and master excellent decision making. But a quick warning, we are advice and action focused in all of our articles, podcasts, and videos. This means that we attract people who like to be challenged to become excellent, to take action, to put in the work to optimize themselves, not simply just gather more information. If you are committed to personal growth and ready to radically find your inner truth, Then come over and be a part of our growing community of like minds at Personality Hacker. Now back to the show. Who else? Yes, come on in. All right, and what is your name?
Kara.
Kara. Where are you from, Kara?
Chicago.
Chicago. Thank you for joining us live here, all the way from Chicago.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here.
What's your best fit type?
ENTP.
Uh-oh, I got two with me here.
Yeah, you're flanked.
Oh, no. At least you're on that side of the table. I'm not flanked, technically. Thank goodness. So what do you want to talk about tonight?
Okay, well, I don't think I want to go deep into uncertainty, but I'll go to my 10-year-old.
Okay.
And for me, that's extroverted feeling. And I've heard you guys talk a lot about how we're in an era where extroverted feeling is going to become increasingly important. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the things that are going on right now really are pain points in the realm of extroverted feeling. So since this is my 10-year-old function, I definitely find that I just don't know how to meet a lot of the situations that I see coming up in the world. And I was wondering if you'd talk a little bit about how we can develop ourselves to actually be good shepherds of this extroverted feeling energy.
Yeah. So you're referencing things we've talked about in coaching programs, I think maybe on the podcast, something. Our view, our opinion is that the 20th century, the last century, 1900s, was all about extroverted thinking. That was the dominant extroverted judging function on the planet. It built a lot of infrastructure. We had the skyscrapers in New York be built, right? And we had a lot of industrialism come online. I mean, it started in the 1800s, but it really came online, I think, in the 1900s. And we've talked about this, extroverted thinking wants to measure things. It built our infrastructure, which is a wonderful thing. But then in certain contexts, the Vietnam War is an example, there was no real metric for winning. So what is extroverted thinking's energy? The Joint Chiefs of Staff of the Pentagon, what do they decide? They're going to decide that body count, as an example, is going to be the metric they're going to use for who's winning the Vietnam War back in the 1960s and 70s. And so you can see both the benefits of extroverted thinking, effectiveness, in all the structure it builds, but also the damage it can do when it doesn't honor people, individuals. It can just throw people as a resource at something and use that as a measurement, and it can go offline really, like a lot. I think that was really the 20th century's energy. In this century, the 21st century, with the area of Facebook and online communities and all of this, we're a globalized society. We're a globalized community. And we got to figure out, how do we glue all of these disparate energies together and make community out of this enormous body of humans? So our opinion is that this century, the 21st century, is going to have the dominant extroverted energy of extroverted feeling or harmony come online. And we're already seeing a little bit of that. You can almost see a little bit of this energy come up, like, the way that we're supposed to speak to each other, the way we're supposed to treat each other. There's an attempt to improve, ameliorate that, make it a better experience for a lot of people. More gentleness, kindness, honoring of everybody's experience, not just the select few at the top. And it wants to flatten everything. No more hierarchy. Let's make it all flat. We're all equal, equality. All these messages are coming online. And so this energy, I think, this is a profound energy that is powerful on the planet right now. And so I'm just helping frame some of the questions you're asking. And why I think you're asking that is because we talked a little about that in different things. So I anchored that in here. Antonia, do you have some comments?
I
guess that was a dumb question. Would you like to speak now? It's probably a better way to say it.
Would you like to hit the Antonia button?
Now, do you have comments? Are you ready to speak your comments?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Fantastic.
So I think it's a really good question. And when Joel says it's our opinion, I would actually say it's more of an observation of something coming online. I don't know if it's like a hill I'll die on. If somebody's like, no, it's not this century of that, I'd be like, okay, it's not. But it's
do you have a hill you die on anything?
I do, actually.
For like your children or your
very
family?
Small number of hills, right? But there's not many of them. Not this one. But I do see it burgeoning. Social media, I mean, things like it's already started in other countries, but this idea of rating each other socially.
Social credit system. Ooh. You get like a 5-star rating on who you are as a person, like an Uber driver.
That's a tough one. Ooh.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah. And so if that is a thing, if that's going to be a thing and that's real, then that's a pretty hardcore extroverted feeling, harmony energy coming online. So I love that you're asking, as even if it's your 10-year-old or tertiary function, I love that you're asking, like, how can we be good stewards of it? And the most important thing, I mean, I think there's a couple different pieces here. The first one is any single function that is allowed to run loose without other functions making sure to, to shape it and keep it in line, will always do damage. Always. So if extroverted feeling is allowed to be on its own without any other influence containing it, it will do as much damage as extroverted thinking was allowed to do during the time periods that Joel mentioned, right? And the blind spot of extroverted feeling or harmony, I say this as a fellow user, is that we always believe we're so well intended, right? Like how could I possibly hurt anybody? I want connection. I want to create I want to create harmony. I want to get everybody's needs met. So the blind spot is in the damage it can do. So that first has to be acknowledged, right? It is not a function that, even if altruism is its highest ideal, it doesn't mean that it's always hitting the target, right? It can do damage. And it's going to do the most amount of damage when it has not integrated the other side of the polarity of introverted thinking or accuracy. And that is, everybody gets to think their own thoughts.
Okay.
And so when extroverted feeling, believing everybody is agreeing, that's the same kind of metric as body count. Okay. And it doesn't sound like it, right? That's not, we're not killing anybody, but you're killing thoughts and ideas. And if somebody is out of line and doesn't agree with you, and you dogpile them, and you call them a terrible human being because they're not agreeing with whatever is the acceptable concept or meme in the collective. Shame
them.
You shame them. You say that they're poorly intended because they're not agreeing with you. It sounds like not that big of a deal at first, but then that's how thoughts die. That's how expression dies. That's how calibration and amelioration and optimization and all the other great things that introverted thinking or accuracy brings. It's how they all die. And so giving people room to disagree, giving people room to have their own opinions on things, to speak radical honesty, to speak their personal truth. You might not like it, right? It might create discord, but harmony is not created by ignoring thoughts, right? It's not like the thoughts go anywhere. They just end up in the shadows, and they grow like mold where we can't see them. So you want all of those thoughts out there, and harmony is created through discord. Now, the challenge is that if you put two brains together, it doesn't matter how aligned they are in a million different ways. Two human beings are always going to disagree about something, which is one of the reasons why extroverted feeling or harmony has a tendency to not really dive into personal opinions on things. They kind of want to keep things at a place of mimetic simpatico. The less you know about somebody else's opinions, right, the more harmony you have, right? If you don't speak another person's language, then you have no idea what you disagree. You can just smile and nod and everybody feels good. The more we talk, the more we communicate and express our ideas, the more opportunities for discord are going to come up, and some of them unreconcilable. To integrate introverted thinking, though, one thing that function understands, I would argue better than just about any other function, is that the universe is built of paradox, and the two sides of paradox must be represented. Otherwise, we're not actually looking at reality directly. So somebody's thought that is horrifically offensive to you, that you think is a terrible thing and makes them a terrible person for thinking it, is being thought because on some level it is true. So you have to figure that out. How is it true? How is it paradoxically true with my truth? And you start stamping that down and making it unacceptable and shaming people for it. You end up down a very, very dark road where a lot of damage is done on the other side. So I think to be the best steward of extroverted feeling or harmony is to integrate introverted thinking or accuracy by not handing your mind over to collectives, by not jumping on mimetic bandwagons, by going, what do I think that literally nobody agrees with me on? And is it okay for me to think that? And the answer is yes, absolutely. You get to think whatever you want to think.
And not just think it, but be brave enough to say it.
Yep, exactly. So people who have this as a strength, the shepherds of it, the stewards of this function, the FJs, the more they can make peace with their introverted thinking or accuracy, their truth that is separate from everybody else's, the better. And the more introverted thinking or accuracy users, the TPs, that are stewards of radical honesty, or at least their perspective of truth and paradox, the more they're brave enough to communicate and speak their truth. That's actually, interestingly enough, even though extroverted feeling or harmony has a tendency to kind of like sometimes not listen to, say, extroverted thinking or effectiveness, it has a tendency to go, well, you know, I don't have to listen to that. If a well-reasoned argument that is penetratingly accurate and a representation of complete truth, most of the time FJs go, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it really sounds like what we really want is to also create containers where there's safety in addition to harmony.
Right. Safety for expression of thought.
Right.
And including unacceptable thought.
So I don't have to worry about getting exiled from the tribe just because I'm saying an unpopular opinion.
That's right. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So I have to play devil's advocate here.
Of
now.
course you do.
It's my job. No, I just chose
Plus
it.
your FI. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the argument on the other side for these unacceptable truths is, well, we've already heard these truths. And we've already decided as a society that they're not okay. Like, do we have to allow people that we've already vetted these things? Like, we already know this is harmful. This is a terrible thought. It led to whatever. I mean, you could fill in the terrible thing. I don't want to name anything specific because everybody's got theirs. And so I'll just take a side, basically. But we all have the thing that we think is so horrible that is an unacceptable thought we can't speak. And so the argument is, we've already figured this out. Like, you know? So why would we allow something that society has already agreed? Like, we've already agreed murder is wrong, you know? So why would we have to allow someone to get up and say, you know, I think the purge is a good idea, guys. Let's do this once a year because it's great to go out and just freeform kill everybody. Like, we're going to put that person in Congress or whatever government you're using and have them give that idea out. That's kind of ridiculous, right? I mean, I'm begging the question here, but the idea is that we silence some things we've already figured out as society.
Okay, so there is a difference, and anybody who uses introverted thinking or accuracy understands this. There's a difference between saying something and enacting something, right? And putting it into, like, you know, like the purge would take I mean, I know you're being a little facetious, but that would be an entire system running that we would have to implement.
Well, let's get specific. Let's say somebody went to a college campus to not implement it, but they wanted to give a talk on why they think the purge, killing people, is a great idea once a year. And a group of people shout them down off the stage to say, I don't think that's, and they shout that they won't let them speak because they think that's a terrible, they don't even want that idea but being articulated for society, let alone enacted upon.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the example I'm thinking in terms of, not just in action, but those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Someone would say.
So it definitely feels like that's noble, right? We're making sure that people who have unacceptable opinions are not able to spread their opinions. The challenge is that those opinions are being spread in places you can't see or manage.
That's right.
So thoughts don't go anywhere. It's just like feelings, right? It's like, well, that's an unacceptable feeling, so stop feeling it. Like, okay, or I guess I'm stop feeling it, but I didn't. It's there. I'm just repressing it. And so when a thought lives, one of the best ways to remove it is it to stop it from being expressed, but to allow the person to express it so they can hear themselves saying it. Right? Like, sometimes I say things and I'm like, at the end of it, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't think that at all. But when it's in my head, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, and it almost, for me, feels like it gives you an opportunity to diffuse a bomb, because it feels like if we keep putting this undercover, there's just more tension, there's more energy, and I think we have a lot of examples where we suddenly see purges happening, and if we actually allow that person a platform and can maybe approach that with some curiosity and care instead of judgment, blame, and exercising them for having these types of feelings, it just feels important to give some air for that so that it doesn't explode in ways that are so harmful.
Yeah. I mean,
I agree with you.
Really dangerous thoughts end up finding each other, especially when we're connected online, and then they end up because nobody else will listen to them, they end up connecting with each other in real life. And then they end up creating communes. And now all of a sudden you've got like people living in certain places that are radicalized and dangerous. And it's like, well, do we want that situation? Because that's what happens when you stamp down ideas. So it's not an easy fix. Like shouting it down is an easy fix, but it's a Band-Aid, and it comes back to haunt you later.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, the best way for extroverted feeling or harmony to be responsible as they believe they are, as well-intended as they want to see themselves as, that other side of the polarity is absolutely imperative. And for them to remember that they have thoughts that they disagree with literally everybody around, and they're allowed to have that thought, and they're allowed to say it. And so that's my personal opinion on how to responsibly steward that energy.
And it's really modeling respect, because even though we don't like the idea, it's like this person gets to exist, they get to matter, they get to have a voice, and maybe that's what's actually most important in some situations.
Yeah, and sometimes they're right and the collective is wrong. Right? That's the other thing. Like, we've all heard the story, the apocryphal story of the emperor has no clothes. People in groups, if there's no calibrative thought, they can start believing some wiggity whack stuff, right? And so it's like that one person go, listen, everybody has lost it. Like, your guys are all off your rocker. And somebody goes, oh, thank God somebody said it, right? Because I had to pretend that I thought this was all like the right thing, but it's actually, yeah, it's totally right. And so you need that one voice. That's why those people exist, because they're representing a truth that maybe you can't access yet. You might be the wrong one, even if you have numbers on your side. So, yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. Appreciate it. Give her a hand. All right. We have somebody else who wants to ask a question. Come on up. Join us. We'd love to talk to you. So first of all, what's your name?
I'm Camila.
Camila. And where are you from, Camila?
I'm in Maryland, about 30 minutes west of D.C.
Oh, 30 minutes west of Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Our nation's capital here in the United States. And what are your best fit type preferences?
I'm an INFJ.
INFJ. Feel free to come close to the mic. It's totally
Yes.
cool. It won't bite, I promise. And what do you want to talk about tonight?
So my question was surrounding the concept of analytic versus holistic energies of the cognitive functions. I wanted to know...
We're going deep real quick. We're just
yeah.
going to jump right into it. Fantastic.
That's right. I was noticing that I've been using mostly the holistic, so I'm a harmonizing type, and I wanted to know if you have any tips for how to get more into the analytic energy.
So you're referencing something that we've been talking a lot about with our colleague and friend, Dr. Dario Nardi, about there's, the 8 cognitive functions in the Myers-Briggs system. There's 4 perceiving, 4 judging. These are the ways we learn information or make decisions. Qualitatively, there's some. It's almost like how we focus them. So you're talking about the idea of an analytically focused function, which is a little bit more pointed, a little bit more direct, initiative taking, versus a holistic function. So it's the same function. Like I use, for example, introverted feeling as my co-pilot or auxiliary function. So I could point it and be more direct, analytical, or I could diffuse it, take in more territory, be a little more responsive. So it's a little bit more of a, I'm just for everybody watching in case they need to be caught up. This is like how these 2 directions can go. And we always talk about you probably lean one way or the other in your cognitive function. Like all of your cognitive functions probably lean one way or the other. And then the idea is that we can access and round out some of our growth by tipping into some of that other expression. So the analytic, we can lean more into the holistic or vice versa to get more access, especially some of our stronger functions, because that's really gives us a lot more breadth in our growth journey. So that's what you're asking about, just to give everybody that's listening that may not be up to speed with your question, the frame we're coming from.
Right.
And whether you or not you prefer analytic or holistic with your first 2 functions, that gives 4 combinations, both of them analytic, both of them holistic, one analytic, one holistic, and then a reverse, then that creates 4 different subtypes.
Yeah.
And the harmonizing subtype, which you just mentioned, is holistic both.
Yes.
Right. So as someone with INFJ preferences, then you have holistic introverted intuition or perspectives and holistic extroverted feeling or harmony. It's just as a question, have you always felt that way, or did you get trained into that?
That's a good question. I would say that probably from the age 8 and up, I've been harmonizing, but I have been told that as a child, I was very assertive, like young child. Mm-hmm. So I would say that it would make sense that I got trained into it.
And do you have any, suspicions on why you picked up the message that sort of being more receptive was, what your environment wanted of you?
Yeah, I would say my parents have been very my way or the highway. So I definitely have always had to step back and be whatever I needed to be very receptive rather than force my way.
And do you think that you were rewarded for that, or just not punished like you would have been had it been analytic?
I would say I was praised for it. Yeah.
Okay. So there is a couple different things, but particularly in a situation where you would be punished to be one style and you're praised to be the other style, it means that there's going to be, there's like some almost imprinting going on, right? If I go more analytic, am I going to be acceptable? Is it going to be okay? Like, how is the world going to respond? So that's the first question. That resonates?
Very much,
Yeah.
yes.
And then the other style is like, just how do I do it, right?
Yeah.
So there's two layers. It's like, what's the mechanism? And the second layer is, and then what will be the response of the environment around me?
Yes.
So let's tackle the environment. In the situation you're in now, I'm assuming that you're not still living with your parents.
No, not. I'm
Yeah.
not.
What would the environment that you're in now, how do you suspect it would respond if you went into a more analytic frame?
I think it would be very beneficial for me where I'm at this point in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In what ways?
Yeah.
How do you think it will be beneficial for you?
I think that in order to reach my goals, I definitely need to step up and start being more assertive. Yeah, less just responsive to things. And I do feel a lot more permission for that than I used to, especially being away from my parents. So I guess my question is more, how do I get into that now that I do feel more of that permission?
Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, even if you feel permission, even if your environment now feels like it would be receptive and it would be okay with it, there's still going to be a lot of early messaging that this feels wrong. I'm bad for doing this.
That's true.
So the first thing is that you have to make peace with the fact that it's going to feel like you're doing something wrong. Yeah. So it's like, I have to accept that. If I'm going to go to a place that I knew that I'd be punished for, or actually have memories of being punished for, but I knew even unspoken I would be, then even though I'm an adult, there's still like early parts of me that assumes the environment is going to respond the same. So it's going to feel wrong somehow. So that's the first thing.
Yes.
The second thing is it's a matter of, and this is a challenge that I think, I hear a lot of women talking about this right now. So I think that this is something that's not uncommon to women. But I don't think it's exclusive to women. I think men also experience this, is the permission to take up space, right? Like we have permission to assert ourselves in the world and allow the world, like if our assertion creates a little chaos in the world, it doesn't mean that we did anything bad or wrong, right? We have, and that's the beauty of the analytic versions, is that, like Joel mentioned, I almost see this as two forms of meditation. So there's the style of meditation where you can like focus on a single point, like maybe like an imperfection in the wall, right? And you just focus on that, and it's like a single point that you're really like focusing all of your attention and your mind on. And when you do that, you miss a bunch of stuff here because you don't have any peripheral vision. You just have the ability to focus. Then there's other forms of meditation like Shambhala, which encourage you to sort of lid your eyes a little bit, and then you get to see a lot of you get to see a lot of side view, peripheral. but you can't focus on any one thing. The analytic version of the functions is like focusing on one single point, right? But you miss a lot of stuff over here, right? You're not going to be able to see in the peripheral, but you're going to see one thing very clearly. And when you do the Shambhala, you get to see a lot of side view, but you don't get to see anything specific. So, so not only are you going to have to make peace with that, it's going to feel wrong, but the second thing is that you're going to miss stuff. Right? There's going to be stuff in your peripheral that you're just not going to pick up because you're going to be asserting your energy as opposed to being receptive to other people's energy. So that's the other thing, is that on some level, you're going to have to grieve the loss.
Yeah, I can see how that might also feel a little bit scary to not be aware of some things.
Yeah. And especially if you like are trying to be vigilant, right?
Absolutely. That's exactly it.
Yeah. So I would say the next piece is specifically for you is bravery and courage.
Yes.
Right. The bravery to know that when you aren't hyper vigilant and taking as wide a view in as possible, you're going to be okay. It's going to be all right. Right. So not only is it going to feel wrong and like you're missing a bunch of stuff and is this okay? And am I allowed to take up space? And am I allowed to assert myself? It's like, it's going to just feel off, right? The whole way through. With introverted intuition, the analytic version of it is, I have a vision for the future. I have a vision for my life. Right. And I think other people should get on board. Right. So this is what I see. This is where we're headed. So get on the ship because this is where we're going. Okay. Yeah. So it's like an attitude. It's an attitude of I'm off to the races and you better come join me. Otherwise we're not traveling together. Right.
It's a lot of certainty.
Yeah. But it's your first function.
Yeah.
So what's nice is that you have a built-in certainty packet. Right.
Yeah. I definitely do feel it. Like it's in there. I trust my ideas and the conclusions I've come to, but at the same time, there's still that what if I'm wrong. And I put myself out there. Yeah.
And you're talking about, I've got this grand plan for my life where I'm heading. I can see it. Let's get on board and go. I mean, you might want to start smaller. We build skill anytime we are doing something by starting with the things we can achieve. We just stretch just out of our comfort zone. So probably with your first two functions is finding access points, like your harmony process, extroverted feeling, finding places to be more assertive with your boundaries, with your intuition, be a little bit more direct with your perspectives, just on small scale things. And you can stair step up to, hey, I've got a plan. Let's get on board and go. I think out of the gate, clearly that's going to be, it's something you warm up to, you develop toward, you build skill for. It's not just something you have a talent for it, but it's also something you have to build skill with that talent in mind. So I think that's what I would add to the conversation as well.
Yeah, for sure.
That
Small steps.
makes sense. Yeah.
And I don't know if the uncertainty is coming from the functions, like, I could be wrong. Well, the I could be wrong is oftentimes an uncertainty in the third function of introverted thinking or accuracy, right?
I was thinking that, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's where your uncertainty is coming from, but not those first two functions. So giving yourself permission to not just sort of slide back into the third function, because that third function, it really shouldn't be in control of anything, right? It should be supporting everything else. So anytime you feel uncertainty, go, well, I'm actually not in my first two functions. I'm not in introverted intuition or extroverted feeling. So what do those parts of me have to say, right? And then, as Joel mentioned, small steps. It's going to take courage. It's going to feel weird. It's going to feel off. If you can make peace with all of that, then slowly over time, you can go, here's where I'm headed. This is where I'm going. Everybody, let's get on board, right? Extroverted feeling. It's like the analytic version is called the shepherd. Okay. It's like herding cats. All right, people, this is where we're headed. Let's go. Let's make it happen. Okay. And if you give yourself opportunities to test it in your environment, and you don't get this insane pushback that your soma is anticipating from ancient memories,
Yes.
then, like a little bit more assertiveness, you're going to feel, and I bet it's going to feel good, right?
Yes. So I guess it's about reworking those neural pathways.
You got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you guys. Yeah. That's great.
Thank you. Give her a hand, everybody. So we're going to land the plane here for this episode. We've gone a little bit, about right around an hour. And we really appreciate all of our studio audience here with us tonight. So thank you so much for being here with us. I'll have you give an applause as we exit in just a moment here. But what do you think? You've been watching or listening. You've seen some questions come up, and this is a great opportunity for you. You can't come and join us at this microphone unless you're here in the room with us right now, which you may not be. But come online, make your voice heard. What is coming up for you in some of the conversations we've had? What question would you have if you could sit down at the microphone and ask us? We obviously have a 10-minute type advice show that we can do audio recording questions and answer those on the air. And we'd love to hear from you. You can head over to personalityhacker.com directly below this episode. Leave a comment, ask that question, or share your story. I love stories because they are compressed experiences. I can get a sense of who you are, where you're coming from the stories you share with all of us. And I think we can get some conversation started around some of these ideas. So come over, personalhacker.com, and make your voice heard.
And if you enjoyed this podcast, you can subscribe to us on iTunes and various Android platforms. If you leave us a rating and review on on iTunes, that helps us out a lot. I'm almost there. And by the way, I haven't seen a new review on iTunes for a while, so get to stepping, right? Do that for me. It's a gift to Antonia Dodge. If you enjoyed watching this on our video podcast, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, on YouTube.
We're all over the
I'm
place.
I'm almost there. I've almost got my script down. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, and you can like it, you can subscribe it, and you can hit the little bell icon.
Or as Piper says, smash that subscribe button.
Smash that. That's right. Smash the subscribe button. We have a book. It's called Personality Hacker. You can get it in all major book retailers. And if you leave us a rating review on Amazon, that's where you're supposed to leave that one.
That's right.
That also helps us out a lot.
That's right. My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
So we've done our live podcast now in Gettysburg with this amazing studio audience. Thank you all so much for being here with us tonight. That's right. And we'll talk with you on the next Personality Hacker podcast. If you're focused on personal growth, I think you'll resonate with our core content over at personalityhacker.com. We want to see you understand how your mind is wired so you can generate motivation, improve social skills, find career opportunities, and master excellent decision making. But a quick warning, we are advice and action focused in all of our articles, podcasts, and videos. This means that we attract people who like to be challenged to become excellent, to take action, to put in the work to optimize themselves, not simply just gather more information. If you are committed to personal growth and ready to radically find your inner truth, then come over and be a part of our growing community of like minds at Personality Hacker.